Welcome everyone to this webinar on our new reporting that's in version 5.3 of Virtual Cabinet. That's the version coming up in Virtual Cabinet. The background to this is that we know that data drives a lot of decisions within businesses, and we always listen to user feedback and requirements from the marketplace, but we also carried out a lot of health checks with clients on their VC system, and the info we learned from them we've actually built into the reports coming out in the latest version of Virtual Cabinet. Before we get properly started, I do have to remind you to make sure that you're in our marketing lists, or you're logged on or into our social feeds. So we do sometimes get comments that, oh, we never hear from Virtual Cabinet, and we push out a lot of information, products, tips, hacks, and company info and future strategy, etc., through these channels. So please ensure that you're all signed up. I should introduce myself. I'm a co-lead account manager at Virtual Cabinet. Myself and Lee Porter look after our own set of accounts, but we're also in charge of the strategy and focus of the account management team throughout Virtual Cabinet for worldwide, actually. And joining me today is Sam.
Thanks. I'm the product owner for Virtual Cabinet, so I deal with a lot of the development and support with Virtual Cabinet, making sure that the product is built up to all the features and everything that you need it to be.
Thanks, Sam. And just before we actually get started, I always have this here to remind me that you will all be on mute. If you have any questions, stick them in the question or chat box. And also we will send the recording out and make it available to you. And again, one of the reasons why you want to be on our marketing channels is you can actually access those and see some of the previous webinars and some of the upcoming webinars as well. But before we get started, I would actually like to launch a poll. And if you wouldn't mind just having a look at the poll and answering it. I don't know what you do with a poll. I guess you answer it, and we'll have a look at the results a little bit later on.
So yeah, whilst you're answering that, I can, as Ken was talking about, modern businesses data drive decision, and that's not just accountancy, insolvency, all of our businesses. We as a business ourselves. So it's been very important over the last few years to really get the most important, the most up-to-date and relevant data for our business. So with all our piece of software internally, we make sure we get the best and most accurate data out of all of that, so that we can drive decisions as a business, understand what we need to be developing for new features, what you are talking to us about, what we need to do for invoicing and finance. Everything in our business comes through from data gathering, make sure. And this is why we're putting the reports in Virtual Cabinet, to give you more information about your system.
Thanks very much, Sam, for that. I will refer to the poll as we go through the webinar. It's very interesting. The main thing that come up is searching, and the second main thing is the portal. And actually, we will cover some of the portal reporting that's in the product as well. Actually, it's changed slightly. Actually, the second thing that covers email captures, the third thing was the client portal. And actually, we talk about how your emails are managed within Virtual Cabinet. We can actually surface some of the information about that too going forward. That's kind of the agenda for today. We actually snuck in an extra one there. We snuck in tasks at the last minute. We thought we'd show you that as well. But to get started, we'll talk about user reports. So this again is in 5.3, and it's an example of a user report.
So this is called the user activity report. It's completely new for version 5.3. This first part of the report is an overview of the users that you have in the system, so particularly useful for managers and system administrators. But from here, we can see how many documents people have been working on, and then particularly focusing in on in-tray documents. So here we can see how many in-tray documents are, and a key indicator here as well is oldest in-tray document. So you should be regularly filing documents in your in tray. This is the best approach and where you'll get the most out of Virtual Cabinet. File documents in Virtual Cabinet are then accessible by the right people in the right places to drive the workflow and through your business. So from here you can see how many people have got lots of documents in their in tray that might be need to clean it up, or who's doing better than other people. You can also see documents in progress. So these are documents that people are currently editing and working on. And you don't really want to keep too many documents in progress at one time, because documents checked out to one user aren't accessible to other users until they've saved and checked in their changes. So it's a good idea to kind of keep an eye on this and make sure this number is not getting too high. And there's also, likewise, you've got tasks here. So a little insight into how many tasks people have got outstanding and they're working on. But we've got more detailed reports than this specifically for tasks.
Yeah, and actually this is a bad example we picked because this client doesn't actually use our tasks, but we thought we'd put it up there anyway.
Yeah, so this is the second half of the user activity report. So you simply scroll down from what we just saw. It's probably also worth saying at this point, reports are accessible through the Reports tab at the top of the screen. So you can see in this screenshot, between Work in Progress and Discover, you'll have the Reports tab if you have access to any of these reports. So this activity shows us what's going on with users over the last 30 days. So there's a nice graph to see what people are doing and when, and specifically breaks it down into kind of areas and actions that users are commonly performing. So how many documents have they added? How many documents have they edited? And how many documents have they viewed? So we know certain users are more likely to add documents. Certain users are more likely to be working on documents. We know kind of certain users, maybe partners or administrators, are maybe only likely to view documents, but you can see that information from within this screen and how people are accessing it. You can even see, for example, when was the last date they were active? So are they using it this week, today, how active they are? And this whole report, this last 30 days report, can be filtered down to specific groups of people. So if you're a particularly large business, you can say the Manchester finance team, that group of users, I want to see what they are doing and how they are using the system.
That's great. Actually, Sam, there's two questions popped in. One I'll answer myself and one I'll ask you. Some eagle-eyed person has said, it looks like nobody edits the documents in this example. And actually, this is a real world example. We've obfuscated the actual client data. And this is an insolvency client. And in the insolvency world, they tend to throw a lot of documents into VC, often PDF, often scanned, so they wouldn't be editing them. So good question. But the second question I've got, which you can answer, please, is how frequently are these reports updated? Are they live or whatever?
So most of the reports in the system are real time. So particularly anything around what's the tasks or in-tray documents, what's the most up-to-date information. This one in particular is 1 day old. This will tell you everything up until yesterday.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Sam. I think the next one, yeah, is the portal report. Now, actually, this isn't new. The portal report has, there's a set of portal reports that existed in Virtual Cabinet, but because we're talking about reporting, because we're talking about surfacing data to you, we thought we'd throw it in here. And actually, there's about 4 or 5 different very useful reports in the portal. The main one is user activity, which just shows you what's been published to whom, what's outstanding, what you need to do. I always say it's your Monday morning, your Friday afternoon job, just to look at, have a catch up and say, okay, what's published, what's outstanding. So if you look down the list here, I can see I sent out a document on the 19th. It has been actioned by the client. So from here, I could right click and send them a reminder, or I might drop them an email or pick up the phone and say, hey, you haven't actually actioned that document I've sent to you. And again, that's been in Virtual Cabinet, but we thought we'd just send you a reminder of that.
Great. So this is another one of the new reports in version 5.3 of Virtual Cabinet. So this is what we're calling our documents report. So the first half of the report is an overview of all the documents that you have in your system. So the first time you ever see all of this information put together in one place in Virtual Cabinet. So we can see how many documents I've got, and then how many documents I've got broken down per filing cabinet. This is quite nice. It's able you to identify which ones are being used more than others. Maybe some ones are underused, you can utilize them more. It also breaks down what types of documents are being stored in the system. So in this example, there's quite a large percentage of documents which are emails. So maybe this company would like to look at more of our automatic email capture to save time saving those emails. And then the other half of the document report, so I would scroll down from what I just saw, is the activity over the last 12 months. So this shows the number of new documents that have been added over the last 12 months and the amount of document storage those documents have taken up. So this allows me to see what are my busiest months of the year. So in this example, March is a particularly busy month. And December isn't, surprisingly. So these allow you to predict and explore where your business needs to go going forward. And particularly for IT administrators, this enables you to predict future storage requirements for your servers, how you need to provision those.
Okay, that's great, Sam. Thank you very much. Actually, the next report is the document retention report.
Yeah, so this is again the third new report we've added in 5.3. So this is around document retention. Again, accessible through the reports tab at the top of the screen. And this helps you to highlight what you might need to consider archiving or destroying in Virtual Cabinet. Now, you'll all have your own particular compliance requirements for whatever government or regulatory bodies you worked with. So this will depend on you, but this sort of gives you an idea of what you could do in Virtual Cabinet and what you might need to look at. So particularly old documents, so there's often requirements for old documents older than 5 years, documents older than 7 years, things like that. You maybe don't want to be keeping them around for too long. So this is kind of indication of what is in there and what is in there per filing cabinet. Likewise, this indicates what are deleted documents. So I'm just going to give a little quick tangent, because I think this is important, the difference between deleting and destroying documents. So this is something that not everybody understands, but this is very important for administrators and managers to understand. So when a user deletes a document, we don't remove it from the file store or your server. We don't remove the information. We make it not visible to users. So it's more like a recycle bin would be a similar type approach in other systems. So these documents can be restored. So certain administrators will have the permission to search on deleted documents and restore certain documents if they've been deleted in error. So a really good backstop there.
Thanks, Sam. Actually, a question popped in. I'll ask it and I'll answer it myself as well. So, yeah, the retention report is part of a whole module that we call our retention module, where we can do things like set up ex-client cabinets, so you can partition off any ex-client documents into a new cabinet, and then you can apply a retention policy particularly on those, and of course you can apply a retention policy across all your documents and all your cabinets as well. And all this to answer the question is all this can be completely automated all the way up to destroy, but it doesn't have to be. You have the choice of, as a client, to either pick and choose what you'd like to do around this and how you'd like it implemented as well.
Great, thanks. So just going back to there, so that was deleting documents. So if you need to go a step further, and for most businesses you will at some point need to, we have the idea of destroying documents. So when a document is destroyed, it is completely removed from your server. All information that's identifiable on that document, like client information, document description, etc., that's completely removed from the database. So that is important and that is very necessary. So this would be very useful if a document gets over a certain age and you are not legally required to keep that document anymore, or perhaps you have a particularly large document that you need to get rid of for space purposes or something like that.
Is it worth talking about destroying older versions of documents as well, Sam, at this point?
Yeah, so that's something we added in a very recent enough version, a couple of versions back. But that's, you now have the ability in Virtual Cabinet to destroy individual versions of a document or all old versions of a document. So when you're working on documents in Virtual Cabinet, you'll be creating versions of that document. And a document can go through many versions before it's ready to be finished or sent out to a client or something like that. Now, not all customers will want to keep that back history. Sometimes it is very useful, sometimes it's unnecessary. So you can now go in there and destroy all the old versions of that document to clean up that space and get rid of that. And certain administrators or certain users will have that permission to destroy. So if you don't see those options, speak to your administrator.
Yeah, particularly useful for something like an accountant who may be using a same spreadsheet over and over again, and you get to version 250 and you don't need the previous 249 versions. Get rid of them, save some space, but you still keep the existing version of the document there.
Yeah.
Thanks for all those questions.
Yeah, cool. So this is the other half of the retention report. So what we saw earlier, we scroll down to this, and this, it talks about retention policies. So this will show you how many retention policies you've currently got in the system and the ones that are active, and it shows you what they've been processing. So retention policies, these are automated policies that enable you to be compliant without needing to spend all the time and effort manually doing these things. You can still do it manually. If you want to go through search for documents, review them and destroy them, all of that is completely possible within the system, and we can help you with ways of doing that, maybe save searches, maybe various other things. But if you want to save time and make sure you're compliant, that's where retention policies come into play. And this is where you can set policies, essentially a set of search criteria. So I want to look at this particular document type in this particular filing cabinet, and then an age, so 7 years old. So whenever the correspondence in the client's cabinet reaches 7 years old, we can destroy it. I'm happy with that. So that's what we can do. We can do much more complicated things like that, but there's a very simple and really good example. You can set up retention policies yourself. They're available from the admin tab of Virtual Cabinet, but you can also speak to our account managers, and we can get our consultants involved to discuss with you best approaches, what we've done at other sites that can help you with getting the most from retention policies and getting the best from this module.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Just to add my own bit into there, we started building our retention reports and retention policies around GDPR time because we knew that was a requirement of the marketplace. It was a good driver. Since then, actually, the uptake has been quite slow, much slower than we thought, because people have been very cautious on doing this. They wrote their policies out but don't actually implement them properly in the systems, number one, and that's fine. You can go at your own speed. But just lately, in the last, I'd say 6 to 8 months, we're getting more and more requirements from people going, actually, they want to set them up properly. They realize that they're keeping it as a manual task, and it's taking them time, it's taking them effort, and we can automate all this. And as I said before, we can automate it all the way up to you, but we don't have to actually destroy the documents, but we can start to partition those documents out so you can review them yourself rather than having to manually do it as well. So it is worthwhile coming and speaking to our account manager and seeing if that's something that we need to do. And this is the task report. The task report actually is also another not new one as such, but it's in Virtual Cabinet. We did improve it a few versions ago as well. So task is an automated way of running processes within your organization. A very simple one obviously is something like a document approval, where someone might write a document out, send it to the manager for approval. It may be a complicated process for like a client onboarding where you're checking their proof of ID and anti-money laundering and all that kind of stuff. And all that process can be automated within Virtual Cabinet so you can track it. And this report shows there's two reports of tasks that show some interesting stuff. One is outstanding tasks, so you can see who's overdue, what needs to be done as well. And actually we have a new one now which is called completed processes, which actually shows you all the previous tasks that have been finished as well. And so that exists in the report tab in Virtual Cabinet as well. Okay, that's been a lot of stuff on reporting and on data. As Sam mentioned earlier on, all these reports are available in the reports tab in Virtual Cabinet, and you can see all the reports that are available to you. Obviously, if you don't use certain modules, there'll be nothing there as well. So it's important to note here that we're talking about the latest report, that everything you've just seen is in Virtual Cabinet 5.3 is an early adopter, and that should be made release, Sam, in the short.
Very shortly, within the next month or so.
Okay, so it will be available. But really important to note is you need to check what version of Virtual Cabinet you're on. And if you haven't got this nice purple and these nice icons, it means you're on a very old version. Everyone at this stage should be on version 5.0 or above. We're actually stopping support for the previous versions as well up to that one. So you actually may be out of support if you haven't upgraded recently. It's free to upgrade. You can contact your account manager or contact directly support, and we can upgrade for you. Your external IT can do it, or you can actually do it yourselves. It's not that particularly difficult. And actually, with the latest versions, they've made a lot of changes to how we update the database. So it's very, very fast to upgrade like than it used to be before. So there's very little downtime to do so. Okay, that's I think enough from myself and Sam in terms of reporting. One thing I did want to show, there was actually, because we talked about data and surfacing data and looking at it, I actually went to our own support and said to the guys at support, can you give us some data on what you're doing? So they shared these graphs here as well. Just as a reminder, we don't outsource our support. They're based in Cambridge here, and in fact, if I look to our webinar room, I can see them all busily at work, and actually they have those stats on the screens as well to kind of help keep the guys motivated to give you the best support possible. I know I work for Virtual Cabinet, but I think and I believe our support are awesome, and that's reinforced pretty much every single time I go to a client. The first things I say is your support is one of the best. We have real live people that you can actually speak to as well. So I would say upgrade to the latest version of Virtual Cabinet before you actually lose our incredible support guys there as well. Okay, that's it. Thanks very much. As a reminder, we've answered most of the questions. Any more that we haven't had to look at, we'll pass them around to your account manager and they'll get back to you. And if you have any questions, just fire an email to our general account managers at virtualcabinet.com email address, and we'll get back to you. Thanks very much to Sam, and thanks very much for your time.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Take care. Bye.